Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, this is our Wednesday Wisdom. Blair Nightingale here, coming to you from the West Coast. Wherever you're from, wherever you're joining us from today, welcome, welcome, welcome. Always glad to have you. Some of you are going to be here joining us in the room, as it were, live, or you're going to be joining us on the recording. Either way, again, I'm glad to see you here. We do this session every Wednesday, specifically focusing on what are some sides of, if I can put it this way, tradeway that maybe aren't as apparent or as obvious to people, but really is a way that we can help one another pursue breakthrough in our lives and ultimately press into what we feel like we want to see happen. And for most of us, what we want to see happen in our relationship with God and Him through us while we are here on the earth. And that is exactly what the series is about, living at your highest level, but specifically today's session on time, okay? Time, that is a very, very general title in terms of, well, what are we going to actually really look at? But that's exactly right. It's time. And I think about time, which is why I want to do this session. I think about time all the time. If you know me, you know this isn't a title or a topic just for a session online. This is something that I think about a lot, okay? I am very, and try to be, imperfectly, to say the least. It is imperfect. We mentioned on this session last week, like Paul, not that I have attained all this, right? Not that I've attained all this perfection, but I press forward. Forgetting what's behind, I press forward because I am very, very intentional with time. Time is something that I read once, ever keep one's death in front of your face. Now, some of you might be like, that's a little too dark. And this was a book by actually a Christian monk who was specifically just talking about being fully alive. And he was trying to say, we have a limited amount of time, right? We have a limited amount of time on this earth. And I want to say this up at the top of the broadcast. Some of the things I'm going to say about time are just going to establish how precious it is. That's my goal. That's how I feel about it, right? But the goal is not that time is an oppressor. For the Christian, time is no oppressor. Because guess what? You have unlimited time. We get to live forever. We have unlimited time. But we don't have unlimited time on earth. We don't have unlimited time to do what it is that we are blessed to be able to do and called to do during this time, literally this season that we have. So I want to look at that today, okay? I specifically want to look at those sides of time to set our path, set our priorities in time. We're trying to be intentional with time and get rid of the autopilot that we may have, okay? So I had this thought earlier. I wrote it down. I think this is helpful to set up what I'm saying here. And I want to just pause for a second and say this. I hope, despite any challenges that you out there, I'm speaking to somebody today, that you out there may have in your life right now. You came on this video, whether you're with us live right now or you're watching the recording or it was sent to you by somebody who already saw it. There's something that you are wanting to break into. Either you are in a challenge and you want to break out of that, or you are in a place where you're hungry to move forward. You're just hungry to go to the next level. You're hungry to move forward. You want to move to the next level, you need energy. Energy. And I'll tell you, my consciousness of the value of time keeps my priorities in front of my face at all times. And one of the challenges that I've found in consistently living at my highest level is keeping those priorities in front of my face. There are things in life that come and they sober us, and they help us to focus in on what actually matters to us. And being conscious of the limited nature of time is extremely important for that. It's extremely important. I want to say this. When we have a resource in our lives, any resource, doesn't matter what it is, okay? When we have a resource that's always been present, now I'm not just talking about time, I'm talking about any resource. We have a resource that's always been present. It's much easier to take that resource for granted or undervalue its significance, no matter what it is, okay? Especially if the resource, this is important, especially if the resource actually is limited, okay? When we have a resource, any resource that's always been present in our lives, it's just always been there, time would fit that, right? We've always had tomorrow. The sun has always come up for us. We've always experienced another day. We've not lived outside of that, or we wouldn't be alive. It's much easier to take that resource for granted or undervalue its significance, especially if that resource actually is limited. What am I saying? In other words, we cannot afford to look at time like we just have more of it. And honestly, I see the tendency in me, and I see this all the time in people. We put things off. The weightiest questions that we have, the weightiest things we can be doing, we put them off into tomorrow, as though it were a guarantee, even though I guarantee I could ask anybody on this broadcast if you thought tomorrow was a guarantee, and you would tell me, no, it's not, because we know that on some level here, but there's a disconnect, right? There's a disconnect there. So here's just something to start to put this into perspective. And again, this actually, see, there's so many things I want to say. I was just in a vocal lesson, okay? I went and I did a vocal lesson for the first time in a very long time. I'm not really a singer, okay? But I love singing. Now, this is just a simple example. I love singing, and I go and I get this vocal lesson, and part of the risk, I'm pressing through fear. I'm pressing through, should I even spend any time on this? I'm pressing through things to be able to do something that is extremely life-giving to me. It helps me come alive. As I come alive, people around me receive better from me because I am more alive. But choosing to do that in part was that energy was generated by the fact that I don't want to put this off another day. I don't want to put this out another day. I don't want to ignore these things that I want to do another day. We're going to talk in a minute about just kind of using 5 practical questions to help you go, am I using my time, the time I have, in the best possible way? Because the opportunity that every day, no matter what the challenges are, listen, I have had significant life-altering challenges in my life. I don't know what your story is, so I'm not trying to say that everything is easy for everybody. In fact, whether it's easy or not, the question is still the same, right? The questions are still the same. But life every single day affords so many incredible things, and living at the highest level cannot happen unless aware of the incredible resource and blessing that every second has for us. That's not just fluff. I get to make choices, the same choices or new choices, with every given moment. And it's truly a given moment. No one can receive anything except that which is given from heaven. Time on this earth is given from heaven. Every second I'm given, I get the opportunity to make whatever choice I want. I have absolute freedom to make whatever choice I want. It doesn't mean I don't have fears, doesn't mean I don't have challenges, doesn't mean I don't have responsibilities. But I have that power to make choices. And as I understand the kind of power I have to even say, jump on this Wednesday Wisdom webinar because you're hungry for something and you want something to flow in, and hopefully you're going to receive something in this time, right? Or you wouldn't be here. That's an intentional decision, but there is an acknowledgement that I have a resource. It is time, and some people use it really stinking well, and some people are disconnected from how they could use it really, really well. I'm not making a judgment about that, and I told you already, I'm not perfect at it by any means, but God help me legitimately that I would see every second. See, people, I hear this right now. People are talking about COVID and how what's happening with COVID. There are varying levels of fear in our culture for people. I'm not advocating fear at all, but they have been sobered. The idea that COVID has helped them go, this is important to me, this is not. Things happen in our lives, and we've all heard the stories or we've had the experience. Time is short. But it sometimes takes a jarring life experience to bring that into focus for us and show us that life is indeed short. And hopefully, some of the most incredible fruit in people's lives comes out of seasons where they are jarred or reminded. Not that I don't want it to be negative. I've had positive experiences remind me of this too. But incredible life seasons come out of that sobriety, out of that realization. That should tell us something. So here's something we can do. It's very simple. You take 79, grab a calculator, piece of paper, pencil, pen, whatever. 79, subtract your age. 79, subtract your age. Easy way to think of it, whatever number you have left, that's how many summers you have left on this earth if you live to the average life expectancy of an American, generally, man, woman, generally. It's a bit different for men and women, but that's how many summers you have left, okay? A really amazing business and life coach, Ed Milet, uses that way of looking at it in terms of summers. That's a question he'll ask himself. How many summers you got left? Is it meant to be oppressive? Is that meant to be dark? No, it's reality. Okay? Let me read some scripture for you really quick. This will kind of give us some context. This is Ephesians 5:15 through 17. Pay careful attention, it says. Then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise. Redeeming the what? Time. Redeeming the time. Because why? Because the days are evil. 17. Therefore, do not be foolish. Anytime you see therefore, you ask, what's it there for? It's telling us what this verse is supposed to produce in us. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. What's my point? The scripture literally tells us the time, the days of this life are evil. So there's some work of redemption to be done in time. Because Jesus said, I've finished everything you gave me to do. At the end of his life, he said, I've finished everything you gave me to do. And he said, I came to give you life and that abundantly. So I can't go to the highest level and not understand the most precious resource I have. And of course, around Tradeway, we talk about this a lot because money is typically the thing we think about pursuing the most in terms of a resource that changes life outside of that relationship and connection we have with God, right? That's always first. And we believe that at Tradeway. But time is an unrenewable resource. Money is a renewable resource, okay? So we can't go to the highest level if we're not thinking about time. And how many summers you got left? That's a limited amount of time. That's something, I'm not going to put a poster on my wall that necessarily tells me every morning when I get out of bed how much time I have left. But I already think about the value, the power, the significance of every single day that I have. I do better. I've said this 3 times now. I do better on some days than others. but every single day has a deep significance because I can make choices that day that change my life, that partner with God, that change somebody else's life, that steps into an area that I've said. Now, I gave you a fairly low intensity example, but something that God has put in my heart to do, I decided today's the day I'm not going to put that off anymore, right? I don't always have more time, but I feel like I do and I act like I do because I've always had it. I've always had it, right? This is why we hear, and I'm saying this again, the stories of people come to the end of their lives or they have an experience that reminds them. I had a friend tell me the other day, he was up in a hot air balloon. They told him, don't look down. I don't know how high those things get in the air. Him and a bunch of people went in this hot air balloon. He looked over the edge. He was telling me just outside the house the other day what his experience was. He said, as soon as I looked over the edge, you know what I thought? How fragile life is. Something was reminding him, whoa, this is real. This is kind of dangerous. Mortality, and that's what it is. Again, this isn't a dark thing. This is redeeming the times. Be intentional. That's what the scripture is saying, right? There's something to be done. There's something to redeem, and time is important. I watch people, even around our company, Tradeway, make just incredible choices. You know, Katie Huber, the CEO of Tradeway, COO rather of Tradeway, and this is online, and she's talked about this publicly multiple times, but she just made some choices to dramatically influence and change her health. It's been a complete life makeover for her. It's incredible, the transformation. You can see more about that on this page. I know she's posted some stuff on here about that. Every day has the ability to apprehend those kinds of decisions. And it wasn't like it all happened at once. It's one small thing. So I want to give you a healthy view of time where we're just reminding one another that it's an incredible resource, that there's incredible potential and authority that God has given us with every second of time that we have. And as long as that clock is still ticking for us, the potential of who we are, how much of God we can discover, what we can do, is it marches on. It's another, every second, that one right there, that one right there, that one right there is another opportunity. See, that is how I see it. Now, I disconnect from that at times, and then I get back to center. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity. I can do something. And as long as I have this time, I want to, because I also want to get to a place at the end of my life, whenever that should be, and say, I have finished the work you've given me, and I've left a legacy. I think I said this last week. I plan on doing as much damage for the kingdom of heaven while I'm on the earth as I possibly can. I plan on trying to squeeze as much out of this life, no matter how hard it hits me at times, as I possibly can. I plan on being as intentional as possible to get rid of those things that seek to oppose that as I possibly can. And I know that I don't have unlimited days on the earth to do that. So I want to use the ones I have. And I start by viewing it in a correct way, not a passive way, not a peripheral way, but an intentional, it's in front of my face. I don't want to get into striving and anxiety. That's not the goal. But I do want to stay soberly connected to, one, the limited nature of time, but also the potential and the power that's in every second that I'm given. And that translates into some things for me, right? This is sort of a very, I don't want to say general, but almost this is the concept. But okay, what does this really mean? You know? So there's a few things that when I am in this mindset, right, this state of mind when it comes to time and being intentional, there are so many teachings, books, coaches, all this kind of stuff on time management and all those things. And I think that stuff is great. Some of it is so good. If you've never done anything like that, read a book, taken a quick, YouTube video, online course, things like that to help really look at time management even, and just maximizing. Many of us are very, very busy. Some of us are too busy. I've been one of those people. Sometimes the solution isn't getting better at the schedule, it's knocking some things out of the schedule. We're going to talk about that a little in a second. But that said, those resources are so abundant. That's not necessarily the goal of this session today in terms of time. The goal today is to more give us this kingdom perspective on time, what it's for, not what it's for. I had a little pop up there. Kingdom time, what our lives are for and how to use it. And I start by seeing it correctly. So an efficient use of time, when I think about how I navigate that intensity, that it's at times urgency, again, not anxiety, but urgency, like the scripture says, right? 5:16, again, for those of you who were here, I know we've got some new people in the class, pay careful attention, right? Pay careful attention. That's what I'm saying today. That's what we're getting at, attention to time. Not oppression by it, authority in it. Authority in it, because Jesus has authority over time, and he knows where I'm going. He knows what my life is for. So that's the first point I want to say when I look at efficient use of time. This mindset that I have, and how do I practically navigate that? I remember that God is the Lord of time. What do I mean by that? Well, obviously, he is the Lord of time. He created time. He's outside time. He's not oppressed by time. He's not limited by time. I am in time, but I have a relationship with the one who is not. And this phrase came to my mind that I've heard many times in the past when I was preparing for this. And it's simply this: grace is greater than hustle. Grace is greater than hustle. If I look at in the book of Jonah, it says that those who cling to worthless idols forfeit the grace that is theirs. What am I saying? I'm saying in time, I can talk about having a healthy view of it and a sober view of it and the potential of every moment and what am I on this earth to do? And we're going to get in a second here to how close to that am I? But I start with this. You are the Lord of time. I'm not oppressed by time. I'm not under time, right? I mean, I live in time, but because of you, we can accomplish everything we need to accomplish, right? God can do anything as quick or as slow as he wants to do. So because I have covenant relationship and partnership with him, it's amazing the times in my life where I've said, you know what? What I'm going to do with time is invest in you, invest in us, Lord. And he brought incredible acceleration processes that would have taken way longer. Years were shortened. Things in certain seasons happened, it seems almost instantly, miraculously. Breakthroughs, opportunities. We're talking every area of life. Inside, outside. Grace is greater than hustle. We live in a whole hustle world. We live in a hustle culture. There's nothing wrong with work. Hard work is important. But grace is greater than hustle. When I think about time, I got to keep that in front of my mind. And that's just humility. That's an inheritance. The child of God has an inheritance. We don't do anything to earn it. We just align ourselves with God, who is Father. He's given us the right to be called a child of God, and we can receive. That's a healthy thing to keep in mind when we're talking about time. And we're ultimately about his business more than any other business. And that's where that grace and favor gets released. And that is an accelerator like no other in time. And that's something that the world doesn't know about. It doesn't know about. We have a good Father who, when we are about his business, he can release incredible grace and favor to accelerate us in time. Grace is greater than hustle. So I keep that in mind first. Just a reminder to you guys, there is a comment section off to the right on my screen. It may be in a different spot on your screen. If you want to say hi, let me know how you're doing, who you are. I love seeing the comments in there. Tradeway's been having this Tradeway boot camp all week. Karen, I see your comment there. Amen. Thank you for being here, Karen. We've had this Tradeway boot camp all week, which I know some people are probably logged into that right now and they're involved in that. But we just had so much student interaction. I love seeing that. I bet we probably have some people on here today that are part of that boot camp. So we are just doing an intensive all week long, helping people get breakthrough in their trading session after session. We're just, tell you what, intensity, using the time wisely. We're packing a huge amount of development content into 5 days so that it goes marrow deep in these students. And that's another kind of acceleration. But that's using the time. They wanted to see breakthrough in that area, and they're getting it. So that said, I'd love to have your interaction. So go ahead. You can comment on that page as well. If you have any questions as I'm going along, let me know, and I'd be happy to address that for you, bring that up. So we're talking about the use of time. Grace is greater than hustle. Here's another one I would just throw out there. I told you at the beginning, I think about time. I'm not kidding. I think about this kind of stuff. And as long as I'm keeping that grace is greater than hustle in line, I don't get out of balance with things like this. What do I mean? Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you right now. So it's about, 4 or 5 days ago, and I thought about, how much time do I spend in the shower every day, right? It's a goofy question, probably didn't expect me to say that, did you? But, by and large, we're all adults. We spend X amount of time in the shower every day. Let's say at least once a day, right? At least once a day, 365 days a year. To fast track this, it comes out, if we're looking at a 20-minute average, round trip, 20 minutes, it's over 5 days. 5 days in the year. Now, to some of you, you're like, whoa, I didn't think it would be that much. Some of you, I don't know, maybe you thought it would be more. To me, I thought 5 days of my life, 5 entire days of my life. What if I took half of that time and I said, okay, that's going to become prayer time for me? I mean, you fill in with whatever you want. That's going to become prayer time. Karen, I see that. I really loved Christy's recent session. Yes, she did goals, which is an incredible way to focus yourself once again, kind of like what we're talking about. Mario, I see you there. With joy listening to these truths. Yes. Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I bet you've heard that a million times, so I apologize if you've heard that a million times. My last name is Nightingale. There's a couple of jokes I've heard a million times. So glad to have you, Dwayne. Thanks for being on, for everybody there. Let's say you took half that time. That's 2.5 days. I mean, solid 2.5 days of prayer that you just added to your life with time you're already setting aside. This isn't a new discipline, right? This is something you already do. It's already in your life. So are there things in our lives that we already do? They're already habits. They're already must do things. We don't have to discipline or restructure our lives to do them, but we're not necessarily aware of just how much time over the course of a year or a decade or more actually of our lives go into these things. I mean, when you look at the amount of your life, how much of your life you actually spend sleeping, you say, well, what if I live to the life expectancy 79 years? Well, somebody can do the math, 79 years sleeping. How many years of your life is that? So when we think about how long we're going to live, it's interesting. We don't always connect to the fact that these activities that we do that are every day, they take up a considerable amount of time. When I think about this guy, right? The social media, internet, TV, right? I live in Los Angeles. I work in different areas of the entertainment industry. I believe in TV and programs that are life-giving and redemptive and stir our soul and all that kind of stuff. So this is not about that. But that's a lot of time that we use. So how can we redeem some of these things? That's what the scripture said, redeeming the time. How can we redeem some of these things? And if I'm going to spend 5 days, literally 5 days a year, I was shocked by that. 5 days a year in the shower. I'm like, there are so many things I want to do with my life. What if I did half of that time? And I connected with God, literally. And that's where I'm at now. I'm making that an imprint. I can't think of the word. An intentional. That's it. Intentional time of connection, right? I'm going to redeem that. How much time do we spend in the car? Depending on where you live, you might spend a lot of time in the car. How do we redeem that time? We can use that time, not just to be busy, not just to be like, I guess I got to do better. Yeah, okay. No. I'm saying what matters to you? What matters to you on this earth? What has God given you to do? What is the passion in your heart that you want to do? Who is the person in your life that you love more than you love anything else? How can we take the time that we have and do it for that passion, and do it for that person who is a passion, and do it for the Lord who's given us an identity and a purpose? And he said, you've got to redeem the times because the days are evil and they're short. And I've given you work to finish on this earth while you have the time to do it, because you're not going to be doing it up there. Okay? So I think about it like that. And living at the highest level, time is not oppressive to me. I understand the authority I have in it, and I use it. I use it well. And you know what? In those areas I just said, the person you love, the thing you're passionate about, the call you have from God, the time you want to spend with him, the skill you want to develop, whatever it is, the thing in your life that hurts, that you want to change for you, for somebody else. This is about seeing fruit in all those areas. If I don't know that I have incredible authority to make even small decisions today, but consistent decisions every day, and that authority will bring change to that area, and I will get fruit, then I'll begin to engage. And an extra 2.5 days a year to do that, full days, yeah, that's worth it. So there's time tucked away in these things, because this is a phrase we like. I don't have enough time. And I understand people are at different levels of busy. This isn't Blair making a judgment about your life. You can assess this for you. I'll assess it for me. But we like to say, too busy. In many cases, if we were very intentional about time, there's more we can fit. There's more we can do for the things that matter, or we can replace some of the things that don't matter with the things that do. And that brings me to my next thing. Deciding what really matters is a huge part of this. So here's something we can do, okay? If you want to dive into this deeper, write this down for a day. Just do a day, right? Day in the life of. Or do it for a week would be even better, right? A normal week for you. If you can go longer, right? That'd be good data. It'd be good awareness. What is getting my time? What is actually, not what do I think, what is getting my time? You ever done this? You ever just kind of popped this guy up and been like, whoa, was on there a lot longer than I thought I was going to be, right? Or whatever it was. Sometimes when we assess where resources are going, that people do this with money, right? If we don't look at our bank statements, if we don't look at our credit card, if we don't look at what's going, sometimes families, households, they're not even really sure what's going out. You just know when you run out or when it's way bigger bills than you thought, right? It's just about taking an inventory and awareness. So for a week, longer if you can, write down what is getting my time and how much of it. And then you can ask 2 questions. Is what is in column A, what is getting my time? Is there anything in there that's really not worthy of this incredible resource that I have? And I'm not trying to make a moral statement here, but I'm saying, is it really feeding into what matters to you the most? Because your heart, as it begins to align with the things that actually matter most, talking about living at the highest level, you're going to start coming alive all the more. And the people around you are going to start receiving from that. When you're actually investing in the things that actually matter to you, no matter how small they are. I'm not talking about just big things. No matter what it is, that's very life-giving. That is living at the highest level. Being intentional with the most powerful resource we have is living at the highest level. So I can look in that first column and I can be, what am I spending my time on? And I can ruthlessly begin to oppose or cut out anything that's in that list that doesn't belong there. Doesn't belong in the list. Or it's in the list, but column B How much time is it getting? Some of those things are great. They should be on the list. Whoa, that thing's getting a lot more time than I thought it was. It's not a bad thing. It's just getting a ton of time, or at least a ton in compared to what I thought it was getting. And then Blair begins doing the math and goes, holy smokes, that's going to turn into 2.5 weeks of my year. That's how my brain works. And it impacts me when I do that. So it helps me make the adjustments and corrections. Maybe you would do that too. Maybe that would work for you. Again, I'm not trying to be oppressed by it. I'm not going to strive or get anxious, but I'm going to have a dashboard that tells me, that gives me the readout of where am I going? Where is my time going? What's really happening with this resource that I have? And the things that matter the most to me, are they getting the amount of time that I actually want those to be getting? And that's the whole point. If something's going too heavily into one area, I'm going to roll it back and I'm going to reinvest it in an area that actually matters to me. And not only that, but I'm going to start to see fruit from that investment. And that is going to make me happy. And it's going to bless people around me too. So that's the first exercise, right? For a day, for a week. Or you know what? Just sit right now. If you know, you can start to do that right now. But I bet as you go through the day, you can find some things that, I didn't expect that I was spending that much time on that thing. And you may not catch that unless you do it as you go. So that's something you can do, because we don't want to be on autopilot. And sometimes some areas of our lives are on that autopilot. We do things differently. Here's another thing. I'm just going to throw these out there, okay? You guys can take the ones that speak to you. So you have that opportunity to take authority over every moment. Okay, we're going to talk about this a little when we go to another session later in the series. It's called needle moving activities. And it's all about what are the things that I can partner with, an approach I can have, in this case to time, but in general, what are things I can do that are not just activities, but they are needle moving. They are massively consequential activities. When I want to see progress, when I want to see transformation, when I want to see change in an area, what are some needle moving activities that I can really begin to partner with, as opposed to much slower ways of doing things? So that kind of ties into this here, but we'll do a whole session on that later. So you can write these down. You can spend some time praying over these, processing these. That would be a good use of time. To say, here's something, say the thing that you've been wanting to say. Say the thing you've been needing to say, but haven't said, right? Pray the prayers that you've been meaning to pray, wanting to pray, but haven't prayed, right? Start the journey you've been putting off. Somebody right now is going, I know what that is. I know what that is for me. Start the journey, no matter how small the step. Certainly there are probably challenges, objections that come to mind, reasons why you haven't XYZ. Begin to tackle the fear that's holding you back. I talked about this in a previous session in the last series. If you think about, if you were 10 times more courageous, right now, imagine yourself 10 times more courageous, what would you go do? What would you go do if you were 10 times more courageous? If you have an answer for the question that I just asked, then you know for a fact that fear is currently limiting your life in one or more areas. Because if you know there's something you would do if you had the courage to do it, the reason you're not is so often that there is fear. So begin to tackle the fear that must be confronted. These are just practical launch pads to start going, what are some places, some questions I can ask myself of the areas that really, the parts of time that really actually matter to me. I want these in my column A, right? No matter how small it is, we can start meaningful movement. And that's the authority over time that I'm talking about, where we can make powerful decisions, massive action. We can do things even if we start extremely small. Starting is meaningful movement, okay? It's about being aware. That's this whole session. Remember, I said there's lots of stuff out there on time management and all that kind of stuff. There's some really, really great stuff. I recommend it. But this is about being aware of time as my ally, and that every day I have is another opportunity to engage God. It's another opportunity to receive what I need from him, and then go, this is the day you've given me. This is the time you've given me. You've called me to not be unaware. You've called me to redeem the times. You've called me to be active in this. And these are some of the ways I can begin to partner with a greater use of that time. Because here's what we have the ability, I'm going back to something here as I close out. We have the ability to take the time and make new choices with how we're going to use it. And as we do that, according to, again, the things we love, the callings we have, as we do that with that time, I think what I've found in this journey is that I actually have a lot of time compared to what I thought I had to do the things that I'm called to do, right? I actually do. Some of you are saying, oh, Blair, I don't have that time. I go from this thing to this thing, and I understand. I want to be sensitive. There are challenges for sure. But just barring the fact that I wish I could sit with every single one of you one-on-one and have this conversation. Everybody out there has a different situation. I wish I could sit one-on-one and have this conversation. That's what I love to do. I do. I want to sit here and I want to tackle this thing for your life and see you feel like you're moving towards the place that is going to be the most optimal place for you, and you're actually moving out of feeling restricted and moving into feeling like your time is being used for the things that you were put on this earth to do. And I think I'm going to close with this. Ultimately, the grace, it's not always an easy process. It doesn't happen overnight. But if I was put on this earth with a purpose, and I want to fulfill the time by redeeming it, which I just read in the scripture, and come to the end of my life and say, this, Father, I did the work that you've given me to do, then there must be the grace in my life, some way, somehow, to adjust and actually be engaged in that work. Think about why God teaches us to seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. All the world runs after these things. Your Father knows that you have need of them, but you seek first my kingdom and my righteousness. Why is that so important? Because it frees us from the system that says you have to live this way. And that is the number one objection I get in this conversation is I have to live in this system, so I'm not about the reason that I have conviction that I'm even on the earth. Again, I'm not trying to oversimplify this. I wish we could sit and each one of us could talk, but I hope you're hearing me. God will give us grace to do the things that we're actually alive to do, born to do with our time while we're here. And he'll be with us in the adjustments we need to make. And that is living at the highest level, not a second wasted. God is present in every moment of time that I will ever have. And if the only adjustment that I get out of this whole session is that I am going to start looking for him in more of that time than I ever did before, because I'm going to take 10 of my 20 minutes in the shower and make that a priority. That's going to be 2.5 days of prayer this year that I had over last year, right? And I'm going further than that. But he is present in every moment of time. And if I'll turn my attention to him in more moments of time today than I did yesterday, it's going to change the world. It's going to redeem the times. And that for me is living at the highest level. Okay. So that said, thank you guys for being on here once again. It's a little bit different session, but that's what we're going to do in this series. We've got some different ones coming. We're going to roll out these different facets of saying, hey, how could I come up to a higher perspective in this area of my life? And how could I see that produce greater fruit, what I really want? Okay, that's the goal. And that is what we're going to do next week. Okay, we're also going to be here on Mondays. We had a great session this Monday for looking at Market Mondays. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the stock market, some different aspects of that. We've been talking about how it's just not that scary. It's not that scary to get started. Some things may feel that way, but we're going to break it down for you, give you some courage. Again, if that fear is holding you back, if you felt like you were 10 times more courageous, would you learn to trade stocks? Tradeway is the place you want to go. You can join us Monday. If you're wanting to learn to stock trade, go to tradeway.com. Simple as that. www.tradeway.com. Right on the main page, you can see live classes. Click on that button right in the middle of the page, and it will take you to when our online live step 1 classes. We're going to take you from A to Z, stock trading, learning our system. Okay, we had a comment earlier from Karen. She said she really loved Christy McLeod's recent session on setting goals. Christy and her husband Boyce are actually going to teach this entire 2-day course. Okay, and you will get access to that course online. It is awesome. It's how I started in this whole journey. I knew nothing. So if you feel like you know nothing, it's a great spot for you. I promise you, I knew nothing. Nothing. But I took that step. I took that risk because I wanted to see change in my financial future. And I knew I've got this opportunity. I'm going to take it. So for those of you who are actually interested in learning to take that step, that is an awesome way to do that. Mario says, actually, the more simple, the more profound. Very true. Very true. Sometimes get caught up in thinking that if it's more complicated, it's somehow more impactful. But it's simple. When it's simple, easy to grab. And this whole concept is that we have time. God is present in that time. And that means if I will turn my eyes to it, to Him, ultimately, there's a greater level happening in so many moments, greater level of life and possibility and potential happening in so many moments. And moments are time. And I want to be aware of those moments in time and aware of God who's inhabiting them so that I can get even more out of them and leave more of an impact on them. That is the goal. Okay. Karen, it's liberating. I'm happy. Karen says, I'm going to pop this up here really quick. Yes. So true. That's very good. That's liberating. She's talking about what we're saying. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. He gives the ability to break free from the worldly system. Yes. And we wrestle with it. We do. We find ourselves, it's a push and pull. But this is His promise to us. And that's why that promise is so important. All the world runs after these things. Right? But God ultimately gives us a different way. And that is why I said kingdom time, because that's a totally different system. Thank God for the cross on that. Okay. Thank you so much for being on here, guys. We'll be back next week as always. Check out that step 1 event if you're wanting to move forward. We do have one coming up. So you'll want to get in there, get in the class, change your life. It'll change your life. It's an investment that's worthy. And we will see you on Monday. Thanks so much, guys.